Want to record a quick video on some random musings surrounding the data, the facts about the trade imbalance between America and Canada. I know if you watch the media right now, the narrative is Trump is reckless. He's making enemies of our allies, and the trade war is going to result in middle class Americans having to foot the bill because that's how a tariff works. And there could be some validity to that, but I want to unpack the data. I want to unpack the actual statistics. That way, when you're watching a man on TV wearing makeup scare you to death into thinking Trump has lost his marbles and he's just aimlessly enacting tariffs on people, you might get a better understanding of why these types of policies are being enacted. And quite frankly, when I look at the numbers, it's pretty clear to me Canada is in a bad spot. Canada is going to be the one who has to bow here when you look at this data. So first thing I'll point your eye at is a lot of times when you do research on how much does Canada import from America, how much does America import from Canada, figures don't lie, but liars sure can figure. A lot of times they'll quote the amount of goods that Canada imports from America in Canadian dollars, but then when they turn around and they calculate the amount of goods that America imports from Canada, they'll put it in US dollars. And one can say, oh, well, they're just using the native currency of each place, but that's tremendously misleading. And the reason is because the US dollar is only about 68 cents for every one Canadian dollar. So naturally, if you use Canadian dollars for the Canadian import number, it's going to make that number seem extremely bigger than what's actually happening. I'll also fix your eye at the US to Canadian dollar conversion rate. The Canadian dollar is down about 15%. So you take a 25% tariff and tack that on top of a native currency that is weakened against your trading partner's currency by 15%. That's a 40% increase in your costs because your native currency is weakened and there's a 25% tariff on that. So that does not bode well for Canadians. So Justin Trudeau can tell everyone to not buy Florida orange juice. He can tell everyone to stop drinking Kentucky bourbon and start drinking rye Canadian whiskey. This Canadian dollar to US dollar conversion ratio is a big one. A 15% weaker dollar. And this trend has been happening for a while now. This is a 5-year trend. Just recently, we've seen it drop pretty precipitously. It popped right back up, but you're at 68 cents for a US dollar for every one Canadian dollar. So, very misleading when people use Canadian dollars and lay them next to US dollars, because here's the real data. When you look at this is over the last 10 years. This is directly from the United Nations Comtrade database. This is U.S. imports from Canada. Okay, so America in 2023 imported $430 billion of goods from Canada. Now you'll notice this number increased just over the last 3 years. Last 2 years we've seen a big uptick, but just over the last 3 years, because you can see under Trump's first administration, imports from Canada, $300 billion, $326 billion, $327 billion, $276 billion. And just in the last 3 years, you've seen it over $400 billion. Okay, so the idea that our imports from Canada are to drop, let's say they drop by the same exact tariff amount, 25%. We lived in a world with lower imports from Canada for many, many years, much lower than the 25%, because if they dropped 25%, we would still be in the $300 billion range, higher than what we experienced from 2015 all the way to 2020. So is a 25% tariff going to cause your life to your quality of life to drop precipitously. Well, what was your quality of life like back in 2018 and 2019? Was it that worse? That's one thing to think about. Now, here's Canadian imports. Okay, so this is what Canada imports from America. Same story here. It has upticked here in the last few years, but you can see about 277 billion compared to 430 billion. Now, naturally, Canada's entire GDP would be like the fourth biggest state of the United States. So they're a much smaller nation. It's okay to have a trade imbalance. But that trade imbalance with Canada is about $155 billion. We are buying $155 billion more dollars of stuff from Canada than what they import from us. Okay? Now, you would think with America's economy more diversified, you would think there would be a little bit more parity there, but I'll leave that. I'll leave that up to someone else to discern. This is important. So here is America's biggest trading partners. Mexico is America's biggest trading partner, much to the chagrin of China. That's a relatively new phenomenon. Used to be China, and then Mexico has taken over a little bit of a market share. China sits at number 2. Canada's number 3. And way down the line, you got Germany, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. So naturally, a left-leaning media, people who think Trump is a vulgarian and deranged and the figurehead for fascism, these are our 3 biggest trading partners. Mexico, 25% tariff. China, 10% tariff. Canada, 25% tariff. So one could say, hey, tariffs are a bad thing for economics. Here is where I go, if this is an art of the deal play, if this is Trump playing his first card in order to gain ground at the negotiation table, and if you hear what Trump is saying, what he's really asking Mexico and Canada to do is to stop the flow of illegal aliens and to stop the flow of fentanyl. He's saying all the fentanyl is coming in from Mexico and Canada, and you guys need to play your part in doing this. Here is where Canada is against the ropes. This is Canadian export partners. 75% of Canadian goods go to the United States. That is an undiversified portfolio of trading partners. So Canada's got itself in this position where 75% of its exports go to America. And America's going, hey, guess what? Things are about to change. We're going to drop a 25% tariff on you. And oh, by the way, your native currency is 15% lower than it was not but 6 months ago. And you've tethered yourself to us. You've basically made us your main partner. You didn't diversify this. And you're running a $155 billion deficit compared to America. This is where, for better or for worse, right? I'm generally a peaceful person. I don't want to see anyone rake someone else over the coals. This is where, if this is a negotiation play, Trump holds all the cards. He holds all the cards. And if it's also now Canada's boycotting American goods and America's boycotting Canadian goods, we'll see how that works out for Canadians. It's not going to work out really well. If you're just looking at basic mathematics, when 75% of your goods go to America, when your native currency is down 15%, when you're running trade surpluses in the amount of $155 billion with a nation, you don't really have much of a leg to stand on, because the country that you're trying to boycott, you're getting the better end of. My thoughts. Now, one other thing I'll notice too. This breaks down, that trade surplus that Canada has with America. Almost the entire trade surplus is drill, baby, drill. Oil, gas, fuel, distillation products. $131 billion. So when you look at what the United States is importing from Canada, if we drill, baby, drill, if we use our resources on American soil, that kind of goes away. And if anything, Trump has been very clear about, he thinks the key to beating inflation is dropping the price of oil and gas. Okay, so drill, baby, drill. Now here's Canada. Their number one import from the United States is automobiles, machinery. If you ever look at John Deere and Caterpillar, and also Boeing for that matter, if you look at those companies and how much they represent on America's export balance sheet, it's meaningful. So those companies fall in. But interesting when you kind of peel back the curtains and you kind of put your blinders on and put your earplugs in and you don't listen to the people unpacking this narrative that Trump is deranged and he's lost his marbles and what he's doing is irrational and terrible. I mean, just purely look at it from this perspective. If we drop our imports from Canada by 25%, we're still not even back to where we were in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. One man's opinion. Hopefully it was helpful. Wanted to get something out because I know a lot of people are fearful and you know the media is twisting the knife. The press is twisting the knife. I read a New York Times article this morning that just made it sound like this was the end of the world coming. So stay rooted in facts. Look at the truth. Hopefully you found this helpful or entertaining, or maybe it just drove you nuts to see.